Hello, Leo.
Aloha, now you can share.
Okay, perfect.
I shall return in a moment.
Okay.
I'm just finishing my dinner. My tutoring went too long.
Mm. Hello, Ria. Welcome. I hope everybody's doing well. That's okay. Okay. Well, I guess we can start if you like, if that's okay. So let me go ahead and introduce you. This is Ashley Pearson. I met her at 210 DEF CON when they were having a CTF little workshop, we call it. She's a former system admin, and now she is a cybersecurity professional that she's a huge fan of digital forensics and incident response. She's been working with Air Force for the active duty, correct? And She is currently a threat hunter for Air Force, the Air Force CERT. So if anybody has any questions or for her, go ahead and shoot. Or maybe I should start it off then. What are the most common security and threat incidents and events that you know, that happen within the Air Force? What do you normally see?
You'd actually be surprised, not just in the Air Force, but how many of them are due to either administrators on the network doing administrator things, as I guess as I like to call it. You know, everyone's always trying to automate their job, or they've got scripts that they've forgotten about, or accounts that they've forgotten about that are stagnant, and then red team will scoop them up and start using them on the network. You see a lot of that. You also see a lot of easy kills, I guess, not necessarily easy kills, a lot of red team activity. We have a very active red team that we play with. We do a lot of purple teaming stuff too, so we see a lot of that.
And what are there popular software tools that you like to use or are restricted to use, or vice versa, maybe not allowed to use?
Well, I mean, so it is the DoD, so the DoD has purchased tools that they like to use, so we do use that a lot. But in my free time, I try to get my hands on some of the open source stuff. Like I know Elastic's really popular, Elasticstack and Elasticsearch and all that's real popular. I try using Graylog every so often because I know that that one's gaining popularity as far as SIEM solutions go. And then pretty much anytime anyone posts like an open source project that they're working on for either a proof of concept for an exploit that they're writing, or open source tools that a lot of blue teamers use, like Bloodhound is really popular. I'll try to use that in my free time just to get experience with it. Sometimes we're allowed to bring them into work and work on them in the shop. It just kind of depends because we have to learn about that type of stuff so we can do threat hunting on our environment too.
Anybody feel free to ask away.
Well, first, thank you for coming. My name's Leo, and I'm the chair of Selena's sister organization, ACM, and we're happy you're here. But could you explain what CERT is, the acronym? I'm not familiar with it, so.
Oh yeah, it's the Computer Emergency Response Team. There's a couple of certs for all the big like players in the games, like the US cert. They've got one. I know a bunch of other places have them too. From what I've seen, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong too. It's pretty synonymous with like a SOC nowadays, or a Security Operations Center. Sorry.
Right. I'm a veteran, so the acronyms don't escape me too much.
Yeah.
Now, does your cert cover a geographic area, or is it all encompassing of the Air Force?
So the one I'm at is all encompassing. I don't know if so we have CPTs and stuff that are all over the Air Force, and I think other branches are starting to have them too, if I remember right. But those guys kind of travel around and limit their scope a bit more. But for us, it's like the whole Air Force network.
What would you say some of your first certificates were? Because you said you were a system admin at first, so I would assume that, it's pretty hard to jump right into a security job without being administrative or in the infrastructure of IT first.
So I used to think you definitely need help desk. You definitely need something at the lower level. My new job that I'm in, a lot of people come from different career fields. Like we have maintainers that have switched over who used to work on airplanes. We have a lot of cops that have switched over. and they kind of get thrown right into security. I think some of them have said that they have a hard time if they don't get the basic networking concepts, like you were saying, like just stuff that you learn from being in the help desk on how computers work and how network traffic flows through the network, that type of stuff. I didn't actually get many certs when I was a system admin. It was mostly just hands-on experience. That's what helped me learn the most, was getting in and learning how does my server and its services communicate with other things on the network? How is that flowing through the network? I did Active Directory, so it was learning how Active Directory works, just hands-on experience, which I know is hard to get sometimes. So a lot of us do home labbing so we can get our hands on some of the things that I've mentioned. But you don't necessarily need actual like help desk experience or certs or anything. But the Air Force, you can come in as one job and then change your job at a certain point, depending on a bunch of different factors. But when I switched over to this new job that I'm doing now, they actually, what did they require? Security Plus is a big one, and I totally recommend that for if you have like no experience with the security aspects of cyber. Security Plus is great. I think pretty much everyone recommends that as like a good starting point. There are like the CompTIA triad certs too, like A plus and N plus, that are really popular. I don't necessarily think you need those. I think Security Plus gets you like a really good starting point for that stuff. But my unit's actually really big into SAN certs, so I've gotten a couple since I've been there.
Do you find that employers, like especially for the SAN certs, because I know that they can get pretty expensive, do you find that your employers tend to send you to these to get certified, or is this out of pocket?
So I obviously only have experience with the Air Force right now, but I try to keep an eye on the commercial side, just because I follow a lot of people on Twitter. I think it just depends on what company you're with. SANS has a lot of value, but you're right, there is a really big price tag associated with it. A lot of people are starting to point that out, that it's not as attainable for a lot of people if their employers aren't fronting the bill. I will say, if you are interested in it, SANS does a work program. So the course cost goes down from, you know, a couple $1,000s to like $1,500, and that includes a cert and all the books and all that stuff. But it's super competitive. I've applied a couple times and haven't ever been accepted to it myself. But unfortunately, it just really depends on your company and how big they are and how much money they have for training allocated. I will say though, there's a lot of free stuff out there. So for the SANS courses I take, they're great, and they fire hose you with information. But there's so much stuff that's free now, especially because of COVID. A lot of companies are starting to push out like webcasts pretty frequently. So I actually watch a lot of those webcasts, especially Black Hills. I've been binge watching their stuff today.
Welcome anybody else that has joined. If y'all have any questions for Ashley, please feel free to ask away.
I'm sure not every day is the same for you, but can you walk us through kind of a typical day of kind of what your expectations are, what the Air Force's expectation is for you as you step in, you know, first thing in the morning, and kind of what type of things you're expected to accomplish throughout the day?
Yeah. So I do threat hunting. So I don't work out of the alerting platform that I used to work out of when I was a tier 1 analyst. So typically I'll come to work, we'll meet up with the team, we'll see if anyone has found any interesting proof of concepts or anything in their off time, or maybe we got notified by someone because we work with Intel. So we kind of plan out the day on what we're going to do. And if we do have a hunt for that day that we want to search for. At that point, we kind of roll into planning for it. So we'll go over what types of things we're going to look for, what terrain we're going to look for it on, maybe what data sources we need to facilitate that. And then we'll spend the rest of the day executing. And I do love threat hunting. I feel like I never do it justice when I describe it, but by executing it, you're basically, sorry, you're basically just searching through those data sources until you find malicious activity or anything that fits the bill for the behavior that you're looking for. Threat hunting kind of takes a specific personality type, especially because if any of you have experience with it or have heard of it, you don't find bad every time. It's not like when you're working incident response where an incident is kind of handed to you and then you're investigating. But if we do find something during the day, we immediately roll into incident response. So if I execute my hunt, I find the thing that I was looking for on the network, I'll roll into incident response and then begin investigating that until I determine what the root cause of it was, and then give recommendation actions for it based on what I find.
Would you say it's a lot of pattern recognition that you see that catches the anomalies throughout the day?
It depends on what you're looking for. A lot of it, if you have experience with firewalls or IDS or IPS, a lot of that is pattern matching. You're looking for a string that's known bad or an executable name. Hashes and domains and stuff are really popular too for that. Our job is to look kind of for the anomalies that you're talking about. You can do network hunting where you're looking for specific patterns that match like C2 traffic or like anyone reaching out to like bad domains that aren't obviously bad, but you notice like specific spikes in traffic in a certain pattern. You can do that too. What I like to focus on is more host level stuff. So instead of pattern matching, I'll just look for an attack does these 3 steps typically. How can I find those 3 steps happening? And then how can I scope it out on my network to find those patterns occurring on different hosts?
Thank you.
We can't hear you, Dr. Yang.
Oh, hello. Hello, Ashley. Thank you. Yeah, I am Yang. I am the faculty advisor of these student organizations. I want to thank you for your time today and sharing your skills and knowledge. So I have some question. I was late to join this meeting, so I might miss some of the information you may say at the beginning. But I was wondering, like from the brief bio, you worked as a system admin, and then you changed the job to security professionals. So can you could you tell us a little bit more about background and how long you have worked for system admin, and then how did you make a transition to the security professional, and for how long did you work on that area, and then what kind of like certificate would help? I mean, did help for you to get a new job, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So because all those students are like right now juniors and seniors, and they are studying in the field of security and computer science, and they are looking for the jobs, and then probably that would be a good idea to get some like insight that what would be a good way to prepare for them to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
That.
Yeah. So as far as system admin goes, I was actually a server administrator. So I worked Not on the application side so much. I was pretty much just responsible in the Air Force for like standing up new servers for people. I did that for a little while. And then I moved over to kind of a security spot in the system admin world. I started working on firewalls and configuring them and standing them up and working on, I'm not sure what the commercial acronym is, but basically maintained the list of rule sets for people. So if anyone needed anything added or access or whatever for whatever enclave I was providing that for, they would contact me and I would implement that for them. So I did a lot of the maintenance for the devices that they used. If someone had an application hosted on a server I stood up and they were experiencing problems, I would be the person that they would call to troubleshoot any access problems that they were having for that server. And then you have like the typical help desk type things where, you know, hey, I can't access a folder that's hosted on a shared drive that I happen to stand up. So I would help with that stuff too. I did a lot of ticket work. Whenever the regular help desk had too many tickets that they would work, they let me volunteer and work them for them. So at that point, I started doing the very typical help desk stuff of, you know, my printer doesn't work, my computer fell off the domain, and I need someone to add it. So I've kind of done a little bit of all different components of help desk. After a while, I started actually managing the vulnerability management program for the base that I was at. So for that, I did the vulnerability scans. I put together reports and stuff that I would brief to my commander or whoever was in leadership on what our numbers were looking like in terms of vulnerabilities. And at that point, I started doing some of the trend analysis stuff that I mentioned earlier. Like if there are repeat offenders that are constantly showing up with a lot of patches that aren't being installed, I would roll back into the system and client administration role and troubleshoot that device and see if something was broken on it. And I did that for, I think I did it for 4.5 years before I moved over to security. The way that it works in the military, I mentioned this earlier, but you're able to retrain into a different job. And you actually have to apply for the one that I'm in right now. So I think I did that at my 4.5 year mark. It took me 6 to 8 months to get through the training pipeline for the new job. That's kind of unique to the military though, because I mentioned this earlier too, but you don't have to come from a help desk background like I did. They can kind of let you in from whatever job that you currently hold. You just have to pass some of the Air Force's prerequisite tests, but that's pretty specific to the Air Force as far as I'm aware. As far as security, I've been doing it for 3 years now. I actually just had my 3-year anniversary for it. I started off as a tier 1 SOC analyst. That's pretty, I would say pretty standard even between the military and commercial places from what I've seen. You kind of sit and look at alerts, and when they come in, you determine if it's a true or false positive at that point and do some basic investigating depending on your skill set and what you can look at from your position. So I did that for a while before I transitioned over to threat hunting and incident response. I've been doing the threat hunting piece for about a year now. So that's kind of the extended version of the experience that I have so far. As far as the certs go, I know SANS is really popular and we talked a little bit about it, but there's that big price tag that's on there. For the people who are in school, we do this for people who are transitioning out of the military, so I recommend it for any students too. You're graduating with a degree, which is awesome because that is like a huge check mark, even still, based on what I've seen for looking for jobs. I think, Leonard, you mentioned that you were in the military. They recommend getting your degree if you can because it checks like the easiest boxes when you're job hunting. I haven't seen it super required. It just kind of depends on the positions that you're looking for, but I do highly recommend once you find a job that you're interested in, like I'm going to be looking for incident response and threat hunting jobs, I will periodically go look at San Antonio job postings for those and see what things and skill sets that they want, and see if I can either find some YouTube tutorials on it. There are CTFs that you can do to brush up those skill sets. A lot of places, I know Black Hills does this. SANS has a lot of free resources. I'm starting to get into reverse engineering and malware analysis, so I'll go download samples and just play around with them on my home lab. You can spin up VMs real quick, even on the super cheapy laptops. Like I have a cheap laptop, like a Chromebook basically, and you can spin up like VMware Player on there, to brush up on skill sets that you might not be the strongest at. I
Thank
think I
you.
hit everything. Yeah, sorry, I think I hit anything, but let me know if I missed anything.
Yeah. So as you know, the student chapter here is WCS Women in Cybersecurity, and they are hosting, co-hosting with ACM student chapter. So Women in Cybersecurity, as you see, a lot of members are women, female student. So like when I look at the student body in different programs like IT, IS, CIS, and computer science, we have a lot of female student, more female student in IT, like IS, but a lot less student in computer science. And then still there are a lot of challenges for women, female student. And my question to you is that, have you faced any challenges as a woman to do your job, and are you having any challenges like the past and the current time, and then in the future, what do you think about that?
So I'm actually up until recently, I was the only female at work out of the people in my career field. We just got, I think a couple months ago, the second one in there. So it is, we're very rare, at least in the military. I know in the military, females are already a smaller subset of that. So we are rare. I haven't necessarily faced challenges because of it. You always get, which is the sad thing, you're always going to get, one or two people who are, you either have to try harder to prove to them that you know what you're doing, or that you're not there because, you're considered a minority in the field and they want more minority representation. Um, those are surprisingly rare, which is great. Still not great that they're there, but I've actually experienced far more people who either don't even bring it up, the fact that I'm, a female. Like I'm just kind of treated like one of the other operators on the floor for us. I think as time goes on, because more and more females are getting into cybersecurity, or just IT in general. And we have so many groups like the Women in Cyber group. There's so many different groups I see on Twitter too, where they're encouraging less represented people to get into this field. I think it'll just get better with time. Very hopeful opinion on it. But as of now, no, I'm in the same meetings as my male counterparts. If I express an opinion, it's held to the same standard that their opinions are held. If I go head to head, which I do, there are quite a few people where, just dissenting opinions on things. It's never really been boiled down to, like, oh, well, you're just different, so your opinion doesn't count. Thankfully, I have not encountered that.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Sometimes I think that we can take that as an opportunity. So yeah.
My biggest piece of advice, though, is to just have confidence in your skill set for sure. This I've noticed this too, just for my male counterparts at work. So it's not just for females, but the only times that I've ever been called out as a system admin is if I show hesitation, or I kind of answer something with a question mark, like, oh, I think that this is the best thing to do, or maybe we should do it this way, people will sometimes just jump on you like sharks. Like, oh, you're not sure what you're doing. Are you sure that you just, if you go into it confidently and you say, this is how it is, this is why I think that, that's the best way, in my opinion, to approach things, which is very tough sometimes. But as long as you are willing to admit when you don't know something as well, and establish like, hey, I'm willing to admit when I don't know things, but in this instance, I am very confident in what I'm saying. Um, that's definitely the best way to approach those situations, in my opinion.
Just to stay assertive. Stay assertive.
Yep.
Is there a, when we get ready for our interviews and everything, is there a particular interview question, or is it often a skill set that they inquire you to do during an interview?
So from the guys that I've seen, they're actually pretty good about coming back and telling us how the interviews go. That way we know what to expect when we separate. Most of them that I've seen, there are kind of two sets of interviews. You'll get a technical one, and then you'll get just a normal like HR hiring process, like, why do you want to work here? Why are you interested in the company? The technical interview, since we're not like programmers or anything, most of the guys have come back and said it's just been questions like, how would you configure this security product? Or let's say you're working an incident and you come across this, how would you respond? Those are kind of the things that we've seen. I think for the most part, those two tracks of interviews are pretty standard now for cybersecurity.
So as you find the vulnerabilities during your searches and all, are you the tip of the spear? Are you then required to write the product, or are you having someone else, or does someone else take the reins at that point? Because I'm sure the vulnerability needs to be reported, and I'm sure there's in the military they love to have their own little reports.
They do. Yes, they love reporting in the military. Right now, the way that it works is I find a vulnerability and I have a good remediation action for it. I'll write up the report and say what I found and how I found it and what my recommendation is. And I go the extra step and say, like, this is why I think that. And I'll attach like other sources that I found for it. But the actual implementation of the fix does go to someone else for them to do it, which is just SOC struggles, right? We can only recommend fix actions, but we can't just do them.
I think that's just military struggles.
Yeah, I hope it's also military. I don't know if you're Air Force too, but the Air Force does really like.
I was Army.
Oh, you were. The Air Force loves separating duties a
Yes.
lot. So my dad was Navy, and he always used to make fun of Air Force for that, because we are very good at separating all of the duties.
So it does the patching or the closing of the vulnerabilities, does that occur within your office, or is that just pushed off to another organization?
It depends on what it is, because sometimes it's not as easy as just like a patch and go kind of thing. Sometimes it's like infrastructural changes that need to happen, and that has to go through its own process for that. Or like one of the more recent ones is pass a hash is really popular. Kerber roasting is super popular right now. So I was doing some research on that, and some of the changes, or not changes, but some of the mitigations that are out there for pass a hash and just Active Directory attacks in general require like regular maintenance to occur and hash resetting for certain accounts. And I don't own the infrastructure that would happen on, and I wouldn't be responsible for implementing that change. So it does have to get pushed off to other people. I think it goes from the SOC to the NOC to get implemented, basically, is the easiest
Right.
way to translate it.
Okay. And then also, as you're doing as you're going through your searches and stuff, and I realize you're strictly in the defensive side here. How often, if any, do you have the opportunity to pass stuff over for the offensive side?
Not as often as I would like. They kind of, the offensive guys are far more secretive than we are for obvious reasons. So there is collaboration with them. Just for my section specifically, there's not as much.
Okay. Candace, you don't have any
Anybody
questions?
has?
Alexandra?
Oh, I was gonna say if you needed to write your question in the chat, go ahead and do so.
Well, she already answered one of my questions about this. I heard her talking about the Security Plus certification. That's something that I'm working on right now. I'm trying to give myself that extra boost because I'm currently looking for a job, and I feel like because I don't have my degree yet, that this will help push me over the edge.
Have you watched the Professor Messer videos on YouTube?
Yes, I have been.
Yeah.
I've also been, the book that I'm reading is by Daryl Gibson. He also has
Yeah.
that GSEA Premium. I've been doing labs on his website also.
That's awesome. That's what I used to pass mine. Professor Messer. I used all of his videos for all the CompTIA certs I have because I got my degree through WGU, so they make you get all of them.
I made it home. Sorry.
No,
But I may have missed it, but what are all the certifications that you have?
so I've got Sec Plus, A Plus, N Plus. I had to get those for my degree though, so those weren't anything that I got on my own. I have GCIH, GCFE, GCFA, and I'm working on GREM right now. Those are all SAN certs though. Oh, and I forgot. I have CISP too. That one was I got that in my free time. I used my the Air Force gives you, I think the other branches do too. You get tuition assistance.
Yeah, it's okay.
And no, so I used my TA for that to pay for CISP. I took a boot camp here in San Antonio.
I have a friend who also has that certification. He works for
Mhm.
USAA now, but he used to work on Lackland.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I've heard USAA is a really good company to work for.
Yes. They just bought a new house, and I believe that also.
I've heard that they have really good benefits too for employees, which is awesome.
Since most of these guys aren't going to be strapping on boots anytime soon, can you kind of give like a little breakout of what your office looks like in terms of military personnel, Air Force civilians, and then contractors, if any? Kind of so,
We actually have a lot of contractors, especially in the tier 1 position. Like we have a lot of contractors. My section is only military, but that's pretty rare to just have military, and we've only got, I think we're up to 8 or 9 people in my section right now. And we have quite a few civilians too, so they are a majority of us right now. I think the military is catching up to them, if I remember right, but we have quite a few civilian and contractor slots.
What is the type of clearance that they have to go through to become contracted out with the military?
Ooh. I want to say, do they need TS? I want to say it's just secret for them, but I'm not quite sure. I could ask and then see if any of them get back to me and let you know if you want to push it out to them. I don't think that they require TS for the contractors though.
It's a challenge if you're a contractor or trying to do a contractor if you don't already have a clearance, because
Yeah.
most of those companies are not going to pay for you to get a clearance
Hmm.
because it's super expensive. So the best way is to start seeking on the Air Force side. And I have two of the local recruiters' names if you're interested on that side.
Mhm.
I was thinking about having them come in the fall to talk about their programs.
Oh yeah. I know at least for some of the contractors, if you can't get a clearance right away, there are options for like they're called interim clearances, like temporary ones. So I think I'm not quite sure how situation dependent that is though, since I haven't had to go through it. But there are a lot of opportunities too outside of just contracting and DoD stuff.
So that means even though this pandemic, in terms of the number of people to be hired as contractor or the full-time or part-time, it does not, it is not changed or something is changed?
I'm actually not quite sure how their contract has been worked since the quarantine started. Just because they do work differently than the active duty side of the house. So I'm not quite sure on that. I'm sorry.
Do you work from, like, in your current position, do you still go into the office because of the pandemic, or like are you working from home?
Right now, I do get the opportunity to work from home.
Okay.
That's kind of the nice thing about working on computers because you can get to them from pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, I was assuming that most of the positions that might be hiring are offering work at home opportunities rather than going to an actual physical building.
Hmm. I think a lot from what I've seen online and from friends that I've talked to, if you're not working from home, then a lot of places are doing, go in for a week and then you get a couple weeks off to kind of quarantine in between your next shift.
So you would say, like, if someone was looking for a job like I am, I should be like 95% prepared to work from home, like work from home position.
I would say at least be prepared for the option. I know I've seen a lot of places that are transitioning to work from home just to be safe. Um, so I would at least be prepared, yeah, for the possibility that they might have you do that.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Have you noticed a lot of positions become available in your surrounding departments and obviously in your department as well? Or they're not at this moment not looking for new employees to accommodate, the pandemic situation?
I haven't noticed anything, but that doesn't mean that that's not occurring. Like I said, my section is primarily active duty, and we're kind of smaller and more closed off from everyone since we're not working with the majority of the contractors. So it could be happening. I'm just not quite sure from where I'm at.
Thank you. So if anybody has any more questions for Ashley, go ahead and speak up. And then also she was going to do a brief CTF presentation. If you're ready for that, we can go ahead and start that if nobody has any more questions.
Okay, hi, this is Smriti here. Hi, Ashley. Thank you
Hi.
so much for your time. Can you guys hear me?
Mhm.
Yes, okay. So I have a question about any student programs, if you know of, that are offered in Air Force. I know there are some internships or co-op, but how or is it actually relevant in the scenario of your workspace, that you know of, or your friends have worked with some students like in internship, or while they are a student, not just like after they finish the degree?
I personally haven't heard of those. I think I want to say that I've heard that maybe USAA and other companies outside do that type of thing. I just personally have not heard of it within the section that I'm in.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mhm. I will say though, based on stuff that I've seen and experienced, if you're still working on your degree and you don't have any certs under your belt, but you're looking to get experience, that typically the tier one, if you're looking to get into the line of work that I do, I can speak best to that one. Tier one SOC analyst, or any other tier one positions are definitely going to be the best bet for an entry point in. And then typically you can work your way up from tier one to incident response. And, there are just so many other different avenues that you can pursue. Um, and if you're not into the defensive side, there's pen testing stuff you can get into. Red teaming and purple teaming are very popular right now as well. But I know if you are looking to get into the kind of work that I am in, tier one SOC analyst for sure is a good starting point.
Thank you, Ashley.
Did you want me to share the presentation?
Yes, if you don't mind, please. Thank you.
Hey, so Lena, I posted the link to Eileen Chason's LinkedIn page.
Okay.
She is the lead for cyber recruiting for the
Okay.
Air Force civilian side.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Leo.
So if you guys go and add her to your LinkedIn accounts, and feel free to message her right off. But she's always posting stuff about the latest opportunities, not only just on cyber here in the city, but also other opportunities for IT and stuff as well, and throughout the country. So if you guys are willing to move outside of San Antonio.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and mute myself.
Okay, can you guys see okay? I kind of have it just in a PDF,
Yes.
so hopefully that's okay. But
Yes, that's perfect. Thank you.
sweet. So just for the interest of time, I'll kind of give more of a quick overview of this stuff that I talked about during the original presentation I gave. But just a quick disclaimer, I guess I should have said this for pretty much every opinion I've had, but these are my opinions and the tools that I have experience with and the tools that I like while doing CTFs in my free time. I am DoD, so just to throw it out there, this is not the Air Force endorsing any of this. This is not the DoD endorsing any of these tools necessarily. These are just my own personal opinions. For the CTF experience, the biggest CTF I've done was actually at Texas Cyber Summit. I participated in what's called the OpenSOC CTF. I was on a team of 5. We actually placed first in that event and got some black badges for Texas Cyber, which is super cool. They did a Camp COVID challenge during I think the beginning stages of the quarantine work from home situation. We did not win that one, but we were able to place top 5. I've done a couple of open source intelligence CTFs. Very loosely do I say that because open source intelligence gathering is very hard. So I tried it out just to get some experience under my belt, and kudos to everyone who can do those. That was the hardest but most interesting CTF I've done for sure. And then the Air Force periodically will put on some training events that are basically CTFs that I've been able to participate into. And then down here, if you take any SANS training, they typically extend an offer for Net Wars. So I've done a couple of those ones too. If none of you have done a CTF, it's Capture the Flag. It's pretty mirrored off of the typical game of capturing flags. It's a game for the most part. People use it as training. I kind of use it to dabble in different areas that I don't really get a lot of experience in, just to see what I'm interested in. So I definitely recommend participating in them for that reason. If you just aren't quite sure what things you're interested in information security, that's a great way to kind of dip your toes in the water and see what things you're good at and what you're interested in. As far as who can participate, anyone. My first CTF that I want to say I participated in, but it wasn't really. It was when I was in school for this new job. One of my friends is very into DEF CON and hacking and pen testing and all that stuff that I'm not crazy into. So he had us participate in a DEF CON qualifier CTF, which don't recommend that one for your first one. I looked at the first couple questions and was like, I don't know what any of these things are saying to me. So I definitely recommend starting small for your first one so you don't spook yourself out of CTFs like I did for a while. But anyone can. There's college challenges that happen all the time. There's B-Sides is holding a bunch of CTFs. There are a bunch of online ones. No discrimination whatsoever. Any skill set can do it. As far as types go, the big ones that most people talk about are the attack and defense ones, which are kind of like King of the Hill challenges, Jeopardy style. And then there's a couple random ones that don't really fit in there that I can talk about real quick. For the King of the Hill, that's pretty straightforward. You are defending a platform from other people who are attacking it, and you're trying to maintain control over that platform by patching things or finding vulnerabilities and getting rid of them. You're operating as kind of a blue teamer in that instance. You get points depending on how long you've been on that box or maintain control over things. I don't have a lot of experience with these ones personally, but that is one of the major types of CTFs that goes around. The other one is Jeopardy style. These ones are my favorite. If you like puzzles or solving like mysteries or anything like that, I love these ones for that reason. They give you a challenge and you have to solve the puzzle to get the flag or solve whatever it is they're asking you to. These ones are super fun. I love them. I do them probably too frequently. I've done a whole bunch of them since the quarantine started too, to keep myself entertained. And as far as the mixed and miscellaneous ones go, I mentioned open source ones. Trace is specifically like they're really big right now, and they've been around for a while. That one isn't necessarily a CTF. They legitimately hand you missing persons cases, and you need to go out and find information on those missing persons to crowdsource for law enforcement, basically. Those ones are super cool. It's for an amazing cause. I wish I was better at it. It's one of the things that I do kind of in my free time to try to get better at it. So I highly recommend checking them out. for the next two, these are long-term kind of war games. These they're online, they're there all the time for Over the Wire and Hack the Box. Hack the Box is primarily pen testing, so I don't have too much experience with that one. But I have a lot of friends who do it and they have nothing but good things to say. Over the Wire, they have so many different categories on there, from super beginner to very advanced. So if you have free time, I recommend checking them out. They have so many categories of things that you can participate in. It's crazy. So since I do heavily favor and am very biased towards the Jeopardy style, most of the stuff I'm going to talk about is framed for that one, especially because it's just so common nowadays and they're so easy to spin up. But typically, this is the kind of stuff you're going to see: cryptography, steganography, reverse engineering is becoming really popular. I wish I was good at it, and I'm not, but I try it every time it's on there just to get experience. Memory analysis is really popular now. The open source gathering, like one of them I did, they literally screenshot a picture of a hotel and said, what hotel is this based on the stuff that's in this picture? And what's the address of that hotel? And then, okay, now that you know what hotel it is, what building was this picture of the hotel taken from? They kind of give you those kinds of questions, which is really cool. And then traffic analysis. This is like, they literally give you network traffic and they say something bad happened on here. Can you figure out what it is that happened on here? And they'll hide little pieces of information in the traffic itself. I'm not great at that, but I do try. I think it's super fun, and watching the way that people solve it is crazy to me. There are a lot of really good write-ups on the covert channels, especially. The nicest thing is just, again, it's a learning opportunity. So there's no wrong way to go about any of it. If you don't have any experience with any of this, you can pretty much Google like the topic with a CTF write-up and people can walk you through what they did, and then you get experience with a new operating system, a new tool set, and a totally new skill set that you haven't gotten to do yet. This is one of the more common platforms I've seen. They're super easy to use. That left picture there, it literally is just a scoreboard and it'll show you how many points you've earned over the duration of the event. That's more for like fun tracking if you're interested in it, or if you're very competitive with your CTFs that you're doing. Especially if I'm competing against my friends and we're solo, it's nice to kind of get in and like give each other a hard time about, oh, you haven't solved this many questions yet. Mostly just in good fun. These are kind of the topics here on the right that I was talking about. Each topic itself will have like a set of questions under it, which are these little boxes here. And it'll tell you like how many points it's worth. It'll turn green when you answer it, which is really nice if you're like a completionist. Super easy to use though. Once you click on one of these little boxes, will pop up with some details. Sometimes they'll have you go to a website or download something to answer the questions. But I've seen this one pop up a lot just because a lot of them are migrating to online. So more than likely you'll see this platform. This is what I call like the nerd stat section. I love looking at this when I'm doing mine, because it breaks it down and humbles you for sure. It'll break down how many you've gotten wrong and then how many you've gotten correct. And then it'll break down categories. That way you can kind of see like what your strong areas are for sure. Like mine, when I do it, is like 50% memory analysis, because I really like doing those questions. So if I notice that most of my little pie chart is that, I'll try and figure something else out and go like dabble in the other areas for a little while. So I'm not just deviating to the stuff that I like every time. Some of the guys I play with, I tell them that they're very spam happy. They'll go in and just brute force some of the answers for those questions, and they'll have like a 99% fail rate with like a 1% pass, which is mostly just funny. I was mentioning earlier, once you click on one of these boxes here, it'll pop up with this box right here, and it'll say, you're in the memory analysis section. it's worth 50 points. Here's the question. Like I said, sometimes they'll tell you like go to this website and download this thing or SSH into here and work on this specific image profile. This one is just kind of practice for work. So it's having you go through this tool on the right called volatility to pull out some information about a memory image. So this is just to show you this flag down here. They'll normally tell you what format they want it in. If they want it to say like flag with a little curly brace and some equal signs, or if they just want you to spit out whatever the answer is, like in this instance, they just wanted the answer to the question they were asking. Super easy. Normally the people facilitating it leave their messages open so you can message them if there's anything wrong. My friends and I have done a couple recently where we either have a hard time finding the answer or we challenge the answer. And you can reach out to whoever's running it and just say, hey, I'm having some problems with this flag. It's not letting me enter the answer. This one is pretty straightforward though, if you have experience with volatility. If not, there are 1,000 tutorials online, so super easy to use once you get used to it. This was another example just of some of the stuff you might see. In this one, they wanted me to SSH into a server and run some commands on some memory images that were in there, but they're just asking for a process name here. They're not asking you to format it any specific way. This one's not necessarily a puzzle. This is more of like a learning one versus like a, hey, here's this super hard to solve thing. This is just practicing on tool sets that we use. This one, I kind of threw in as an example of the different types of steganography questions you might have. And if you aren't sure what steganography is, it's just hiding information in something else that the normal user isn't supposed to know about, right? Typically, it's text that you're putting in a picture, right? So then there's different tools that you can use to extract it out. I'm not great at that. I always have to re-download all my stuff and like re-Google 1,000 different things to figure out how to do it because it leaves my mind like the second the CTF's over. But there are other examples where this one is a text file. We actually talked to the person who wrote this after this one, and we were like, what was going through your head when you wrote this? Because this is the most evil type of steganography question that I'm very creative. I'm very envious of whoever had the time to figure this out. I think we spent like 2 weeks working on this because we all thought we had to convert this to another type of file. We were just like smashing our faces on our keyboard, like, what do we even do with this? We don't even know. And then like 2 weeks later, I was Googling around and found this PDF that was like, hey, sometimes you can hide information by just changing the case of the character, where a lowercase is a 0 and an uppercase is a 1, and then it translates to binary, which then you can translate to human readable text. So I did that. I cannot script to save my life. It is one of my weakest areas. So I literally sat there with the pen and paper and I was like, okay, little letter 0, big letter 1. And I sat there with my pen and paper and wrote it down. And then I typed it into CyberChef so I could get this translated from it. That one was really fun. In this instance, they did want you to see this, what I was talking about. Sometimes they'll have you throw like the little flag around it with the curly braces. They'll normally tell you how they want you to format it. And like I said, this just shows you the range of questions because this was all in the same CTF that I did. Like some of it is just very, hey, can you provide me with an answer for this thing? And it's only worth 50 points to this terrible, but very fun to work on question. I mean, I learned a lot that day about steganography that I didn't know about before, which is one of my favorite parts of these kinds of things because you can just find yourself down a Google rabbit hole for a while. I mentioned over the wire earlier too. They have like, I went to them to go learn Linux because I don't have a lot of experience with Linux, and they have like this huge challenge set of like teaching you every single command, like how to type like change directory, how to change the syntax of stuff. Very, very basic Linux commands. So if you don't have experience with Linux, you should totally check out the site. They are amazing for learning new things. I go here periodically and just mess around with some of the challenges so I can get some experience. But they have some cryptography challenges as well. So if you don't have experience with cryptography, check these guys out because they have a whole war game set based around cryptography. As far as things to keep in mind, I know I've mentioned some of this a couple of times. If you're on a team, just communicate with your team. You can take hints on some of these questions if they're too difficult. They do cost you points though, so it's just courteous to let them know, like, hey, I'm stumped on this. Can someone either help me out, or I'm going to take this hint if no one else can figure it out. Just communicate with them. Um, some some of your teammates are going to be stronger in other areas, which is amazing, and you should hang out with those people because you'll learn a lot from them. But like, you learn how to communicate better with your teammates as long as you are willing to do so with them while you're doing the CTF. The statistic thing, I don't know if that's just a me thing. Like I said, I love looking at those when I'm doing CTFs. I love creeping on the other teams to see how they're doing, like the whole time. I think it's hilarious and fun. Some CTFs, I told you I work with some spam happy people who just are like, oh, well, this thing has 10 possible answers, so I'm just going to spam them in there until one of them's right. But watch out because some places will limit you on your answers and they'll start taking points away if you guess too much. Or what they ran into is the server will literally yell at you and be like, hey, slow down because you're typing in answers too fast here. So it'll slow you down. And then, like I said, it's training. Unless you're in an actual competition for like a DEF CON qualifier or something like that, I mean, what's to lose, right? You're gonna learn something new no matter what, as long as you don't go in and just say, well, I'm good at networking, so I'm only gonna do the networking questions. This is like the best opportunity for you to break something, and it's okay because it's not a real thing, it's for training. I am kind of addicted to learning stuff in my free time. I think a lot of people that I've talked to are hesitant to admit how much time they spend looking up web talks, like white papers and stuff. But I'm on Twitter. I follow a lot of people on Twitter. I highly recommend, if you're interested in this field, just make a Twitter account, even if it's just to lurk on there and find things you're interested in. I follow some of the bigger people on there, and then they always tweet out like blogs that they're working on or proofs of concept that they're working on. That's like one of the best resources for threat intelligence too on ongoing stuff. D for Diva, if you guys have not heard of her, she has a blog. Let me see if I have it bookmarked. Okay, here we go. I can post it in the comments for you guys. Her free training is like the best free training section I've ever seen. She has it broken down into category based on what you're interested in, and everything on that page is free. That thing is amazing. So I would bookmark that for sure because I go on there every once in a while and I'll click on stuff if I'm bored. Black Hills, defensive origins, active countermeasures, they all kind of work together, and they have been hosting so much free training, and they always post them to their YouTube channels afterwards so you can watch them a bunch of times. I go in there and I'll watch pretty much all the stuff that they have. Sans does free webcasts every once in a while, and they have a free resources page as well. And Discord. Slack was really popular for a while, but lots of places are migrating to Discord. So pretty much every company that I mentioned up there, like Black Hills has a Discord, Trusted Sec. I don't know if you guys know Dave Kennedy. He's like a famous hacker that's out there. He's really active on social media actually, but he'll hop in Trusted Sec and they'll do like ask me anything sessions with the people that work there. So Trusted Sec, I think the other day they did a talk on, like, I want to say it was interview tips or something like that, or I know they did one on threat hunting because I went in there and looked at that one. But Discord is really popular right now. So you can get in there and hop in and ask any questions you have, and there's 1,000 people waiting to help you and mentor you. For finding CTFs, CTF time, I go there. They post write-ups, they post upcoming events, they give you pretty much everything you need: time, URL, description, what it's for, if it's a qualifier or not, what type of CTF it is. They give you everything in one little window. It's awesome. And then again, Twitter. I follow a bunch of people on Twitter. It's like the nicest way to get in contact with people. If you tweet out questions, people can help you with stuff. I was actually on there today talking about canaries with someone, and people will respond with their experiences and stuff, which is awesome. That's my favorite way to keep in contact with people. And friends and coworkers. If you have a little circle of nerds, that's what we call ourselves at work. We all, in our free time, will go look up stuff and then share it with each other. Like, hey, did you guys see this? I think we should hunt for this on whatever day when we go back to work or whatever. We do that a lot, as long as you have like a nice little circle of friends that you can talk to.
Thank you, Ashley. That's awesome.
So if you guys don't know about Cyber Chef, I know she mentioned it. I got hit in the head numerous times by Dr. Barton last semester, so I'll put the link in there if you have not seen it before. It pretty much will break out any crypto that you could think of. And then I was talking to a couple of alumni the other day, and they were both harping on those basic Linux commands like Ashley was mentioning. So.
Yep. I'm not a Linux expert by any means, but knowing just kind of how to move around a Linux system is definitely helpful.
I know you had mentioned reverse engineering. What exactly is the reverse engineering, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, let me see. So I'm still super new to it, but if someone writes malware, they're typically going to write it in like a human readable language, right? Like, now I'm blanking, like Python or JavaScript or something like that, right? Like a regular programming language. Unfortunately, when you get it compiled into an executable that is then run on your computer, that it changes the way that it's presented to you. So you no longer get to see the source code and the way that they wrote it. So when you get into reverse engineering, you find that executable after it's gone through the compilation process, right? And then you look at what's referred to as assembly language. It is very, I don't want to say niche because I know a lot of people are really into it right now, but you're basically having to reverse the code that they had without looking at the source code. It's very fun. It's very frustrating too, obviously, because there's a lot of different ways that they can mess up the way that you're doing it. But that's kind of what I mean by reverse engineering, just working backwards from the after an execution back to try to figure out what the program was trying to do.
Awesome, thank you. Well, if we don't have any more questions for Ashley, first of all, I want to say thank you again, and I appreciate your time, all your insight and information that you had for us. Really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Again, Ashley, thank you for sharing your experience with us today.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thank you.
So I wrote down a lot of the information that she presented to us, and I'll put that in a PDF file, and I will send it out to our members so that they can, you know, practice their skills. I mean, she gave us a lot of resources, so I will send it out to the chapters. And I really appreciate you informing us about the resources that you are in.
Oh yeah, no problem. Like I said, it's a growing community, so it's really exciting. There's a lot you can learn, especially just because it just keeps growing and growing. So there's always an avenue for you to pursue. So you will never ever be bored in this field, which is why I love it so much.
If there's anything else anybody would like to say, if not, we can go ahead and end our session with Ashley.
Just one. I just thought there is, because you mentioned Cyber Texas Summit.
Mhm.
So we are part of San Antonio Women and Tech group. So we basically planned to have with the Cyber Texas Summit with San Antonio Women and Tech group. They will be having a conference at the end of October. So
awesome.
as part of their conference, our San Antonio San Antonio University Women Symposium will be held. That was the plan, but because of this difficult the time, we have not decided yet what to do yet, but it's a plan. So just in case, if we want you to join us or speakers, and then if I was wondering if you are interested in
Oh yeah,
joining us again. Yeah,
of course.
just in case. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Awesome, I appreciate that, or we appreciate that. So I will definitely keep in contact with you and Dr. Yang and Dr. Bott, because they hosted or organize it, I should say. And we will be reaching out to you come October, whether it's virtual or having it at Texas A&M San Antonio.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, is that correct, Dr. Yang?
It's in the downtown. I believe it's a Hyatt hotel. The conference will be held there, but sounds like maybe it's going to be virtual, but we are not sure yet. But we will keep you updated. Yeah, she will contact you.
Yeah. If you guys
Mhm.
just keep in contact, I would love to. That'd be great.
That's great. Yeah, thank you.
And then I have one housekeeping, Ashley. I hope you don't mind. I have been recording this session and I plan on posting this on our YouTube channel, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. That way,
Yes,
everyone
you're gonna have
who,
to make her sign an agreement. I'm just kidding.
that way they can go and go back and check all the good information that you put out, as well as everyone who wasn't able to attend today.
Mhm.
So.
Thank you, Leo. Okay. Well, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. So I guess you could go ahead and stop recording, Leo.